Reverend Dvon is a righteous man.
Bullshit.
These videos are satiric reviews. You don't have to agree, but don't bitch about it. I hate this channel.
Hey there, I'm social injustice warrior V Infuso, and there's something you should know about me. For one reason or another, when I was a child, I always chose the Marty Jannetties in tag teams. And if you don't understand that terminology, well, you probably shouldn't be watching this channel. But, you know what, since I'm a nice guy, I'll explain to you anyway. That's how nice I am. You're welcome. One of the greatest tag teams of all time, yes, I said what I said, don't comment, was the Rockers. A team which consisted of Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty. Now everyone knows that Shawn went on to become a multiple-time world champion, an icon of the professional wrestling industry, and one of the most beloved men in front of the cameras, and also hated behind them, in the sport. Entertainment. And Marty Jannetty went on to be Marty Jannetty. While both were incredibly talented, only one really made it to his full potential, while the other became a footnote in the other one's history. Hence the term Marty Jannetty. And as a kid, for one reason or another, I always chose the Marty Jannetties in teams. When I was younger, my favorite in World's Greatest Tag Team was Charlie Haas. My favorite in Too Cool was Grandmaster Sexay. And I even preferred Rick Steiner to Scott. So when it came to the Dudley Boys, well, my favorite was Dvon. I always liked his in-ring style, his part of the promos, and the way that he sold a ladder. I mean, look at that! The man looks like he's actively being tased. You ever see that scene from A Christmas Story when the kid dares his friend to put his tongue on a pole in the cold? This guy sells like he made that bet with one of his friends and an electric fence. Where was I going with this? Oh yeah, I always preferred Dvon to Bubba. It wasn't until years later when Bubba Ray turned into Brother Ray, and then finally into Bully Ray, that I'd realized my mistake. So back in 2002, when the Dudley Boys were split up, as Bubba Ray was drafted to Raw and Dvon to SmackDown, well, first off, I was heartbroken. There goes one of my favorite teams of all time. What are they going to do apart? But I was at least curious to see what would be done and where each Dudley would go. But my money was on Dvon becoming the breakout star of the two. I would have lost a full nothing in allowance. So where would the Dudley Boys go? What would they do? Well, the answer is that Bubba would pretty much stay the same. Except sometimes now, he'd like to dance. For some reason. I don't know. He'd also on occasion be joined by Spike. So I guess there wasn't really a huge change there. Just kind of the same Dudley, wore the same clothes, had the same theme song, same gimmick, except now he liked to dance. And he had the same brother, so everything just pretty much checks out the same thing. Whereas Dvon was pretty much completely reconstructed from the ground up, taking the way that he'd end promos and expanding upon it exponentially.
Thou shall not steal.
Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no man.
Thou shall not kill. Blessed is he who risks life, limb, and salvation. And thou shalt not with Dvon. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I have compassion. Thou cannot wait until the next family gathering.
I don't know about this.
Oh, my brother, Bubba, testify! Thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not mess with the Dudleys. Testify!
No longer was this man Dvon Dudley, the hardcore, table trashing, chair smashing, ladder climbing extremist. Now he was Reverend Dvon, man of God. He'd praise the Lord and walk around with a handbasket and eventually a collections box, where he'd take donations from the audience and other wrestlers alike. Also, that could go on to fund Dvon's building savings. And I actually found out that that place is still active, so, you know, next time you're in Dudleyville, check it out. Might be worth it. He, of course, was portrayed as being a two-timer who used his alleged connection with the Lord to weasel money from his peers, only for it to go directly in his own pockets. And apparently Elijah Burke took notice to this, because he'd basically do the same gimmick years later, albeit slightly differently, with slightly different levels of success.
You say that you're a street saint, but from what I've seen, you're really a scumbag. You walk out there and you say you're in the community helping with all your spare hours when you're not here wrestling. Well, that's funny because what we saw was you in the back of a strip club.
When I went to those strip clubs, I have tried to tell those young girls that they don't have to be up there trying to make a buck to put themselves through college.
Dvon would now come out dressed as a priest, preaching for the fans to come testify. And his theme song, oh man, it was so amazingly self-righteous and perfectly pretentious. And kind of catchy, actually. See Xavier Woods here, for example. The gimmick didn't exactly translate into major success. I mean, this clearly wasn't going to be what brought Dvon to the main event. We weren't exactly going to see this man face Stone Cold Steve Austin anytime soon, let alone get the win on him. But the new character definitely did make way for very interesting backstage segments and interactions with Dvon and other superstars on the roster at the time.
Billy and Chuck. I mean, it's wrong. It's a sin. It's immoral. If I'm not mistaken, it says Adam and Eve. Not Adam and Steve. It's wrong. That's all. Point blank, it's wrong. It's a sin. I mean, a man getting on his knee, asking another man to,
Even his own kayfabe brother that one time.
Man, I'm so proud of you. Look at that belt. I wish I could say the same thing about you. I don't understand where you're coming from, my brother. Oh, I've seen the light. And the great prophet, Vince McMahon, he's showing me the light. We're going from city to city, state to state. These sinners out there. Oh, it's a dwelling city of demons. And my brother, you are following in that path. We can help you. Oh, we can help you. We can show you that light. We can lead you to it.
You want a donation?
Oh, yes, my brother.
Instead of trying to save the world,
Right.
why don't you save yourself first?
He'd also serve as the boss, Vince McMahon's spiritual advisor, which is kind of amazing in its own right. Again, this didn't lead to much, but it did give us a couple of fun back and forth moments with Dvon and the guy in charge. Not God. Not God.
Oh, testify!
Our prayers are answered.
Oh, my brother,
Reverend
your prayers.
Dvon.
Oh, testify.
Oh, brothers and sisters, every head needs to be bowed and every eye closed because it's time for prayer. Oh, yes.
We employ the services of the Reverend Dvon Protection Fund.
Brother Vince, the great prophet. Oh, a great prophet, a great salvation of a man.
Oh, brothers and sisters, and Prophet Vince, we come to you right now to reinsure the safety.
You will provide protection, will you not, Reverend?
You want a reverend to go out and buy condoms? The man upstairs says redemption is oh so sweet.
And we come to you once again to reinsure a victory over that no good Jezebel.
Condoms? So you provide protection. You see, where there's Trish, there's bound to be your half-brother in her corner, Bubba Ray. Is he here?
Brother Vince, he's always here.
And all we come once again to... Amen. Amen.
So all I'm saying then, here we have Stacy. I would like to have the services of yourself.
Oh, testify! Testify!
Testify,
Yeah, testify!
Prophet Vince, I spoke to Bubba personally, and I told him he better not show up tonight, or he would have hell to pay.
Me and the good deacon would love to lend our services.
Well, good.
Although now that I'm thinking about it, it's kind of strange that McMahon would have a spiritual advisor when a few years later he literally tried to engage God in a fistfight. But that's wrestling for you. Friends 1 minute, enemies the next. Farouk would also for a brief time align himself with the Reverend, for reasons unexplained. Probably because they both lost their tag team partners in the draft, what with the APA having been cancelled.
Problem solved. I fixed it.
More notably than his short time with Ron Simmons during this period, is that Dvon ushered in a debuting Batista. Yes, this right here, this is where Dave Batista got his start with the company.
You must be so embarrassed!
Except at the time he was known as Deacon Batista. Of course! He'd stand at ringside gripping Devon's collection box. Not sexually. Acting as his insurance policy. As well as accompanying the Dudley Boy as his tag team partner on several occasions.
Oh, my brother, it is now time to go out to the ring and testify.
What the? Who is that?
Brothers and sisters, there has been another follower, Deacon Batista. This follower will be here to protect the Dvon Building Fund.
Though he was Reverend Dvon's #1 guy, unfortunately things went south and Batista would turn his back on his mentor and launch himself into a singles career that had far more success than the man from Dudleyville's first solo outing.
Back into the ring. Where were you? Oh, look out. Batista!
It was also during this gimmick that Dvon picked up what might be the biggest win of his career when he went over on the boss's future son-in-law, Triple H. Albeit with help from Chris Jericho. But it's fine, because Chris Jericho only became undisputed champion with the help of Vince McMahon, Kurt Angle, and Booker T. So, there's a whole lot of that going around at the time. It happened a lot. It happened a lot. At Survivor Series of that same year, he made a surprising 360, helping his brothers Bubba Ray and Spike, as well as Jeff Hardy, beat the likes of Jamal and Rosie from 3 Minute Warning, and their manager Rico, thus officially reuniting the Dudley Boys all the way until they separated in TNA in 2010. And that's a story for another time. I will say it's pretty impressive how they managed to somehow both do so much and so little with the Reverend Dvon gimmick. In just a few months, he went from being one half of a very established tag team, to being a solo act as a villainous preacher, to being the CEO's right-hand man, to being in a short-lived tag team with Ron Simmons, and then going into an alliance with the Leviathan Dave Batista, only to then circle back around to being in that same established tag team he started in. That was all just a few months. Not even a year. A couple months. They did all that. So I guess the question is, was Reverend Dvon a failure? Well, it's kind of hard to say. I personally would classify Reverend Dvon in the same category as I classify Biker Taker and Stardust. These weren't bad gimmicks. As a matter of fact, I find all three quite entertaining. But ultimately, when looking at the workers the gimmicks were placed on, no matter how great they were as the character, you couldn't help but think that the people who betrayed these wrestlers could have been doing something better. In the case of Stardust, he was zany, delightfully delusional, soundly strange. But ultimately, it was hard to think that that was the best that could be done with Cody Rhodes. And as a matter of fact, I think he's proving that that's not the case now. The Undertaker's biker face was great. He came off as an intimidating badass with a take-no-bullshit attitude. But come on, give me back the Grim Reaper of professional wrestling. And Reverend Dvon, while a creative character who had a part to play in some storylines, doesn't really add up to being one half of one of the most iconic duos in WWE history. I personally look back on this brief time period with some fondness, and I miss the days when the product would take developmental risks like this. Sure, it wasn't great, but it was at least good. And I'd like to think that his time as a solo act is more remembered than Bubba Ray's during that time period. I mean, that dance, I just don't want to remember it. I don't care to. I had it forgotten before I made this video. Now I'd like to resume that train of thought.
Well, let me tell you something, brother. You're watching the Social Injustice Warrior V Infuso's channel, dude. So if you like the words that came out of his mouth hole, and you too want to become a V-tard, don't forget to like and subscribe, and click that little bell icon to get updates and notifications. Ooh, tell him what up, Mach. Ooh, yeah. Follow the man on Twitter, yeah, because because we all know it's not stalking if it's on the internet. Yeah, join the madness by joining the Discord. And if you have a moment of time and a free $1 to spare, head over to the SIJW's Patreon, dig it, where you can request videos, get exclusive videos, and early access to content. Yeah. Or go down to PayPal, where you can buy the shirts, brother. But most importantly, just remember, if you're not tuning in, then you're missing out.